Kangmin Ryo stares at a blood-stained clock while a mechanical bird announces the hour. He himself confirms it. It's 7 at night, Korean time, and the target has already been eliminated. Blood slowly spreads across the room. In the hallway, a school uniform appears with the name Kangmin Ryo embroidered on it, his new identity. Now living as a student, he laments not being able to buy cigarettes freely, sighing over the withdrawal he feels. He reflects that if he'd known life would be like this, he would have brought a stockpile of cigarettes in his luggage. He remembers that back in the day, even children used to buy alcohol and cigarettes for their parents without any problem. But Korea's hospitality seems to have disappeared after the country became a first world power. Observing the city, he notices how much everything has changed in a decade. Luxury cars everywhere, huge buildings, a completely different standard of living from what he knew as a child. Even so, the cherry blossoms remain the same as always. An old memory invades his mind as he watches a family pass by, himself, still young, excitedly pointing at a duck, and his mother joking that now she wants to eat duck soup, revealing she's already made a reservation at a restaurant. When the cherry blossom petals fall like popcorn, the father suggests going to the movies to eat real popcorn, asking which film the boy wants to watch, and the boy, still with his mouth full of petals, picks the teacher's secret class, making the father agree enthusiastically. Back in the present, Kang-min walks on alone, visible sadness on his face. A device beeps, interrupting the moment of nostalgia. It's time to get back to work. He spots a cigarette shop sign atop a market and remarks that it finally looks like a place where real people live. When entering the establishment and finding no one at the counter, he decides to light a cigarette while he waits. He's then scolded by a man who appears from the back of the shop, questioning whether a student is allowed to smoke there. Kang-min apologizes, saying it's a favor for his father, and asks to put the purchase on a 36-month installment on his card. The man stares at him, saying he's also a regular customer of the place. Kang-min laughs, explaining that he watched so many dramas during his time abroad that he confused the man with a shopkeeper from the shows. The man replies, casually, that he also recently returned from abroad. Quite the coincidence, they both agree. The conversation then reveals that the two of them worked in the same field, assassination. A blow is thrown at Kang-min, who reacts quickly, identifying the man as a traitor to the organization, someone who killed members and fled. He states that he has come to eliminate him. Shelves are knocked over during the fight. Kang-min mentions the organization's card system, which assigns different colors according to the agent's rank, with the black card reserved only for those of the highest rank. The man, surprised to learn that such a young agent already holds a black card, asks why he came unarmed. He then recites the rules of the trade. The first, never forget a weapon. The second, always attack by surprise. During the confrontation, asks why he betrayed the organization, since an agent of his level surely enjoyed several privileges. He answers with a metaphor. He felt trapped, as if inside a can every single day. When he tries to attack again, he's blocked precisely by a can used as an improvised shield. The two exchange increasingly violent blows, and the man adds that he only wanted freedom, even knowing that following the organization's orders like a hunting dog was a living hell. His opponent retorts that in exchange for that freedom, something was surely lost. Wounded, the man reveals that when the organization discovered his betrayal, they executed his entire family as punishment. The organization keeps constant surveillance over its agents' relatives precisely to prevent desertions, using them as hostages. Kang-min merely watches him in silence. Noticing the man advancing again, he kicks up a powder that spreads through the air, temporarily blinding him. Fallen over a table with a knife and an apple, the man mutters that he paid the price of freedom with his own family's life, and that even so, he got off cheap. Kang-min asks if he knew his family would be sacrificed regardless, and the man, with contempt, grumbles that everyone says the same annoying nonsense before they die. The scene cuts to a memory of Kang-min's, an older, sweating shopkeeper working tirelessly in his shop. When asked why he doesn't close the establishment to rest, the man replies that he needs to support his family. Kang-min reflects on this dedicated father, sacrificing himself for his sick wife and young children in a small shop, and confesses, upon finding him dead with his head shoved into a television, that the reason he killed him was precisely that hypocritical talk of happiness through sacrifice. The traitor asks if Kang-min doesn't also work to protect his own family, but he vanishes in front of the man, remarking that family is like a leash, and that he'd rather cut his own throat than live tied to one forever. The man tries to counterattack, but discovers too late that his blade is no longer in his hands. Kangmin took it without him noticing, citing the third rule of the trade: never discard your own weapons carelessly. The man, intrigued, asks if he had just been toying with him from the start. Kangmin denies it, explaining he only wanted to confirm if there was another reason behind the betrayal. He then reveals that his true mission in Korea was never to eliminate him. He was just an unexpected complication along the way. The real primary target is someone special enough to justify risking his own life. With these final words, he wishes him eternal freedom. The clock and the bird reappear, marking the end of another warm-up before the real mission. Kangmin then heads toward the real target, remarking that he'll need a new uniform since the next day he officially starts his undercover work at Anil High School. He promises to keep his usual discretion, quiet and efficient, only asking that they get him a cigarette as soon as he finds a target. 1 month before this moment, the scene takes place at the mansion of Congressman Manuel Santos in Angelos district. Kangmin finds it strange that a private residence would have such excessive security, questioning why it would need so much protection. Before acting, he demands that the congressman's family be released first, promising to not harm anyone besides the target, an absolute rule he follows to the letter. The congressman, relieved, one of the guards remarks that he expected someone more frightening, fearing that the assassin had come from Batala. The organization revealed next to be a front for a gambling house, hiding a special negotiation table that not even the government itself can touch. Confirming rumors that they are the best assassins available, the representatives explain the card system. Each card corresponds to an assassin's rank. Kangmin chooses the Ace of Spades, paying a high commission in chips to secure the service. Back at the mansion, the congressman is eliminated while his wife and son watch in terror. Kangmin silently apologizes, saying that one day he'll pay for his own sins. The focus returns to the school in Korea, where Kangmin, still without a defined identity among his classmates, casually asks if anyone has a cigarette. Mistaken for a troublemaker by the teacher, he officially introduces himself as a transfer student, revealing to his classmates his true codename, Hil Kangmin, known in the underworld as the Ace of Spades, a member of Batala from Daegan. He reflects that in order to complete his mission of eliminating the target without raising suspicion in such a safe country, he had to enroll disguised as a student, though his parents apparently believe he's studying just to get into a good college. Despite everything, he confesses he just wants to enjoy school life normally. At the Batala casino, it's revealed that the current target is a South Korean national living in Seoul. But there's a problem. No other information about the target's identity was provided by the client, only the name. Kangmin finds the situation odd, but accepts the challenge. Back at school, he has already identified the target's classroom, but upon opening the door, he finds a group blocking the way. A classmate is even thrown against the wall after a confrontation, and the automatic door sensor breaks. Asked if he's alone, Kangmin admits he has no friends, deciding to go with an alternative plan. Outside, smoking, he talks with a classmate who mentions knowing Lee Sung-kwan, the supposed boss of Daegan. Kangmin, lying smoothly, confirms the friendship and makes up a story about a drunken night that supposedly destroyed a karaoke machine, thus securing his first friendship in Korea. After class, walking with his new classmates, Kangmin recalls another disturbing memory. As a child, terrified, being forced into the trunk of a car by men planning to take him to Angelos. He wonders whether, if not for that day, his current life would be real instead of just another disguise. Back in the present, a girl approaches him asking if he'll go straight home after cram school, and he confirms he's tired since it's his first day. She smiles, commenting on the cozy lighting and soft bed in her room, suggesting he choose what to do first: TV, video games, or food. But the scene turns out to be a cruel setup. Other students appear filming and taking photos, laughing and mocking him, suggesting he wed himself out of fear. Confused and humiliated, Kangmin asks why they were doing this to him, a question that echoes back. The scene returns to the conversation among the classmates. They mention that the supposed friend he referenced had a liver problem since childhood, and didn't even know who Kangmin was when they called to ask. They then discover he had been bluffing since he arrived at the new school, and searching for a cigarette in the middle of class had already given him away. One of the classmates warns that from that moment on, every break period, Kangmin will be used as the classroom's automatic door, and they propose finishing what they started. The narrative returns to the Batala casino, where Kangmin initially refuses the mission, questioning how many people share that same name in Korea alone. It would be impossible to eliminate all of them. As he examines the information about the target, he notices a Joker card at the top of the deck. The representatives explain that this contract is different from any other he has ever accepted. As a reward, the organization would offer the so-called eternal freedom, the guarantee that after completing the mission, he would never need to return to Batala again. Realizing that this could be his last mission, Kang Min feels he needs to accept it at any cost. His body, covered with scars from past battles, reflects years following his absolute rule: never harm anyone besides the target unless attacked first. To get close to the true target at school, he adopts a plan B, creating a persona flashy enough to catch the attention of the most influential students and provoke them to attack him first. In the preparation phase, he takes a slap from one of the bullies and reflects that controlling his own strength is harder than he imagined. The story goes back 6 years to Kamatayan, a private and deserted island belonging to Batala, used for training. There, recruit number 55, Kang Min himself, still young, remains chained underwater with time running out as his lungs reach their limit. Moments before passing out, a vision of his grandmother in the sky accompanies him, and he holds on until the end of the test, escaping the chains on the sand. Shortly after, when an instructor points a gun at his head, he uses his surroundings to turn the tables and fires at his own attacker, revealing calm and professional reasoning even under risk of death, coldly explaining that the first shot is always a blank to prevent accidents, and the second is always live ammunition. Back in the present, in peaceful South Korea, Kang Min reflects that this environment is completely different from the hell he grew up in, and that since his opponents now are just ordinary students, he can't simply eliminate them as he normally would. He needs to act with more caution, so he begins his plan in stages. First, creating a justification that doesn't look like one-sided aggression, making it seem like the fight was mutually agreed by both sides. And in the process, he destroys a fire extinguisher with his bare hands, impressing everyone. In the second stage, he decides to make an overwhelming impression, an action that gets marked as a threat among the students. One of them asked if he would even hit a girl, and is caught off guard to discover that one of those present, disguised within the group, is also female. Kang Min then asks about the whereabouts of another senior student from the neighboring class who usually skips classes. One of the boys, terrified, tries to flee by faking an award-worthy theatrical scare, but is easily restrained by Kang Min, who assures him he doesn't intend to hurt him. In the third stage, the goal is to instill deep fear in the students. During a chase, one of them suggests fleeing on an electric scooter to gain an advantage, but ends up getting caught anyway. While trying to escape, he reveals his past as a rising star in the national junior MMA qualifiers, destined for glory and money until he accidentally crushed an opponent's skull in combat, which ended his career. Recognizing him as a worthy opponent, Kang Min feels genuinely excited to fight someone strong again, and the confrontation begins. During the fight, a body is thrown against a wall separating two rooms, and the doorknob ends up broken in the process. Kang Min simply reminds the boy that he was supposed to push, not pull. When panic among the students reaches its peak, Kang Min reveals he never actually intended to hurt them. In reality, he just needs a small favor. It's the girl in the group, realizing she's the only one capable of convincing the others to cooperate, who agrees to help him, practically becoming his subordinate from that point on. Kang Min's first question is about the senior student in the class next door who never shows up to class. Elsewhere, inside a hideout full of shelves, a group of men celebrates the profit made by a video that went viral, earning more money than the entire previous year. One of them jokes that it's all like a fresh plate of sashimi. The more recent, the better. Despite the high traffic raising concerns about police tracking, the boss assures them that the servers are hosted overseas and that not even the FBI itself can locate them. A noise at the door interrupts the celebration. A blonde young man enters, demanding to know who leaked that video, identifying himself as a member of the Ri-Suk gang. Recognizing that he's clearly not a cop, the men try to intimidate him, but the mood quickly shifts when firearms come into play, something rare and illegal in South Korea. Shots are fired. bodies fall, and amid the chaos, it's revealed that the weapons used were actually modified toy replicas, still capable of killing. Surrounded by bodies, the young man insists that the video be taken down immediately, revealing, shocking the few survivors, that the person shown in the footage was himself. The scene cuts to Kangmin's room, where his school uniform hangs, but behind a wall, a staircase hides a basement lit by dim light. There, remarking on the boldness of carrying firearms in a country where that's illegal, even if they're just modified replicas. They exchange a cigarette, lighter, and ashtray in an almost nostalgic gesture. Kangmin reveals the real reason he came looking for him. He wants to know more about the senior student in the class next door who never shows up to class. At a shooting range, Jang Ren-so, 19 or 20 years old, a first-year student at a Nil high school, listed as a senior, demonstrates flawless marksmanship even while claiming it's his first time shooting, hitting target after target and impressing the onlooker, who jokes that the military is losing out on real talent. As a reward for winning a plush toy prize, he reacts in a strangely serious way at the idea of a reward, raising the toy gun with a dark look in his eyes. Finally, the scene shifts to a girl grumbling to herself in the hallways, bothered by Kangmin's interest in that mysterious student. When confronted by him, she notices they're dressed in a similar way, which he describes as a matching look coincidence. She asks why he asked her out specifically on the weekend, and he recalls the promise made at Room Cafe about owing her a favor. Learning that Seoul's most talked about ball is coming up soon, she assumes he, a Daegun hick, wants to show off, but is soon surprised by the refined atmosphere around them, remarking that even the pigeons seem elegant there. The two end up at a refined restaurant with a table full of dishes, and she mocks his terrible taste for picking fancy places. Then Kangmin shyly confesses that he's never had a real friend before, which is why he didn't even really know how to act on an outing like that. Cha Round stares at him, questioning what he's even talking about, commenting irritably that she just wants to eat in peace since she's on a diet. He counters by asking why she'd bring him to such a nice place if she doesn't even intend to enjoy the food, and she ends up agreeing that it's delicious, especially praising the fried iguana as surprisingly tasty. Distracted, she ends up with a bit of food at the corner of her mouth, which earns another secretly taken photo from someone watching them from afar. Afterward, the two visit a zoo, where an alpaca spits on Kangmin, leaving Ron delighted by the animal's peculiar cry and the supposed gentleness of the creatures, taking even more photos of the scene. Then they pass through a modern art gallery, where she becomes deeply moved in front of an installation, commenting on the intensity of the piece, until they awkwardly discover that it's actually a 2026 sanitary products exhibit. At nightfall, they stop in front of a new location, and Kangmin asks how much longer he'll need to pose for photos. She replies that she'll only stop when she's satisfied, teasing him about how full his phone's storage must already be, to which he proudly states he has plenty of space to spare, since her beauty deserves to be immortalized as a national treasure. With the day nearly over, the two walk together, and Kangmin thanks her for having so much fun getting to know her better. She suggests one last activity before saying goodbye, a round at the shooting gallery. As she faces the target though, her expression suddenly changes, overtaken by a memory of an old friend, a shift that doesn't go unnoticed by Kangmin. The owner of the shooting stand explains that all it takes is a single hit out of 10th shots to win a plush toy, but privately thinks to himself that the gun's sight is completely out of alignment, practically impossible to hit even for a special forces professional. Kangmin, however, proposes a bet. If he hits every single shot, she'll owe him another favor. She refuses the proposal, but the stand owner is soon stunned to see, one by one, every target hit with perfect precision, wondering if this kid might be some kind of professional assassin in disguise, since he claims it's his first time using that type of gun. Upon winning the prize, however, Ron complains that the plush toy is ugly and lame. Back home, reflecting alone on the day, Ron recognizes Kangmin's obvious tricks, wiping the sauce off her face, taking smiling photos like a nice guy, but grudgingly admits that he still managed to leave her satisfied. The photos from the museum and the moment he taught her to shoot end up posted by her on social media. Stepping out of the elevator, however, she's startled to find Jang Reonso standing in front of her with a disturbing look in his eyes, and the plush toy thrown on the floor of the empty hallway. He remarks on the danger of walking alone so late, and the memory surfaces. A drunken night among friends, including Raonso, where everyone ended up sleeping on the floor except Raon, who slept in her own bed while he watched her closely, repeatedly wondering whether she was really asleep. Back in the present, a scream echoes out. Raonso accuses Raon of having reported him, claiming it ruined his life. Expelled from school, abandoned by his own family. She fires back, calling him a harasser, and he insists, delirious, that she was the one who seduced him first, giving him hope and then mocking him by posting photos with another guy just to make him jealous. Beside himself, he claims he's been preparing for this reunion for a long time, revealing he practiced obsessively, even shooting at the plush toy as a form of discount. Raon, out of patience, hits him with a punch, calling him delusional and suggesting he needs a psychiatric help. It's then revealed that Raonso hired a paparazzo to secretly photograph them and posted everything online, aimed especially at Ryo Kang-min, someone who had already beaten him up before at Room Cafe. He covers Raon's face with a cloth, and it's at this moment that Kang-min finally appears, revealing that he used a crude trap as a way to track him down. Raonso, confused, asks if he's Raon's boyfriend, and upon hearing a denial, fires without warning, but Kang-min dodges easily, disarming him afterward and proposing a shooting duel, with the girl as a prize for the winner, warning him that his gun kills with a single shot. Furious, Raonso demands to know who leaked his intimate video, suspecting the cell phone repair technician, without realizing he's standing in front of the person responsible. A mysterious man appears, identifying himself as a recruiter for the network, an organization that produces scandalous content to profit off embarrassing situations, offering Raonso the chance to join them, given his newly discovered talent for generating controversy. Reveals he knows all about his recent internet fame, mocking the fact that he was caught practicing seduction moves alone, filming and commenting on his moves as if it were training. Raonso accepts the shooting duel proposed by Kang-min, but upon firing, discovers the bullets were only rubber ones, mistaking the delivery of real ammunition for the wrong order placed by mail. In a panic, he tries to flee while shooting at Kang-min, who dodges easily, further exposing his impressive criminal record, even though he's never been arrested, a clear sign of protection by some powerful group. The workings of the network are then explained, a massive and mysterious criminal organization operating in Korea, recruiting students scattered across the country through small independent cells, operating like a network of nodes that's practically impossible to trace back to its source. Kang-min reflects that he needs to reach them at any cost, since the main target of his mission is exactly there, hidden within that structure. Raonso, overtaken by rage, reveals that Kang-min stole his girl and made him a laughingstock, which is why he wants to use him as the first step towards achieving his goals. The confrontation intensifies. Kang-min repeatedly shoots him with a rubber gun, marking up his face and finishing with a blow from the gun's stock, asking if he still intends to keep playing the villain. In a moment of weakness, Raonso recalls old messages to Raon, denying he'd been blocked, insisting he was just following her advice that shooting would be cool. Back in the present, he declares himself a victim of unrequited love, obsessively repeating that he loves her and that if he can't have her, no one else can, then pointing the gun at Raon, still unconscious, promising they'll marry in a next life. The shots ring out, destroying windows and light fixtures, but surprisingly, Raon remains unharmed, protected by a home appliance sturdy enough to stop the bullets. Raonso, intrigued as to why someone would risk their life for her like that, hints at a possible relationship between the two of them, and is mocked by Kang-min, who destroys his second gun with a precise shot, tearing off the tip of his finger. Warned that the next round would be real ammunition, this time a 9mm Glock, Raonso panics and runs away. Kang-min then puts on his hood and publicly chases him through the streets, asking how long he'll keep being pursued by him, since he considers himself just a manipulated victim. Using a nearby electronic billboard, he live streams a ridiculous footage of Raonso running, publicly exposing him as the one behind the embarrassing video. Distracted by the humiliation, Raonso crosses the street against a red light and is run over by a truck, dying instantly in front of the shocked crowd. Kang-min reflects, almost surprised that he hadn't planned for this outcome, but concludes that he got exactly what he deserved. The next day, the news has already gone viral on social media. Jang Raonso has become, in the worst way possible, the school's first celebrity, run over on the very same day he had broken into Raon's house. Alone, she reflects irritably on the bizarre coincidence, feeling her head throb as fragmented memories from that day begin to come back to her, including Kangmin Ryo's voice commenting on the durability of Korean home appliances and the silhouette approaching her. Noticing that she's finally awake, a familiar voice casually mentions that he's cleaning up the mess in the house, and Rayon, still confused by the recent memories, just mutters about how strange it all feels. At night, Kangmin walks alone through the streets, inwardly complaining about how hard it is to find a convenience store that will sell cigarettes to someone who looks 17. He laments not having asked for his character to be created as 24 years old with military service already completed, since now, besides being forced to quit smoking for 3 years, he'll still have to face the military again. A man approaches, introducing himself politely, remarking that it's strange for an adult to approach a high school student like this, but apologizing for the unease. He praises the bold hacking attack on the downtown billboard the previous night, revealing that he represents the Network, an organization always interested in recruiting talents capable of generating controversy. Kangmin reflects that this was predictable. All it took was a high-profile incident to draw their attention. He considers infiltrating as a low-ranking member within one of the network's node organizations, climbing the hierarchy until he reaches the true target, a standard but slow method, since normally only high-ranking members act as scouts, which suggests direct contact with leadership. Without the patience to follow that gradual path, Kangmin points a gun directly at the man's chest, demanding to be taken to the boss. In another setting, a woman trims plants in her garden, casually remarking on the meaning of the Hawaiian hibiscus, which according to an online search has a meaning that's far from innocent. Sensing a strange presence, she reacts by throwing her scissors at the intruder, who is soon identified as the Ace of Spades. She recognizes the unexpected visitor with surprise, asking if it isn't already time for him to head to Korea, since pigeons have taken over the runway. Kangmin jokes about wanting to take a nap before the trip, but she quickly cuts through the mood, asking the real reason for his visit. He then reveals an unprecedented concern. Unlike previous missions where he received fake identities, this time his passport carried his real name and his real date of birth, which makes him suspicious about the true intentions behind the mission. The woman clarifies that this isn't the trap, but rather a gesture of consideration. Upon completing this job, he'll stop being just the Ace of Spades and get to live as Kangmin Ryo, finally free. Intrigued, he questions why the life of a single Korean citizen would be worth as much as eternal freedom, since previous missions, even assassinations of Supreme Council members or wealthy American families, were always paid only in money. She replies that this decision came directly from the organization's upper echelon, and that discussing the matter further wouldn't lead anywhere, also revealing that she had recently received a fax with information she planned to hand over to him as soon as he arrived in Korea. The true target, she explains, created his own organization, extremely meticulous, also structured as a network of nodes of which they've only managed to identify a few members. Kangmin's first step would be to establish contact with one of them. Intrigued to learn that they all appear to be students, he asks if they're asking him to play make-believe, but is warned not to jump to conclusions. Just as a beautiful flower has deep roots hidden in the dark soil, the target's organization may also hide complex layers within the shadows. Back in the confrontation with the network's man, he refuses to reveal the boss's whereabouts, claiming any threat would be impossible and useless. Kangmin fires his gun, momentarily frightening the man, until he realizes, with surprise, that it's only a toy gun, questioning how someone so young walks around armed like that. Kangmin casually explains the technical details that give away the fake: the light weight, the cheap finish, the characteristic spring sound, and the plastic friction of the trigger. The man then turns the question back on him, asking what Kangmin's true objective is in approaching the network. He reacts with surprise to a sudden whisper in his ear, joking that they're literally standing at the door of his own home. The man confirms a meeting set for the next day, at 2 in the afternoon, at the address indicated on the card. But before leaving, he mentions something unsettling. Even though it's clearly a toy gun, he senses the smell of gunpowder in the air. Kangmin, hiding a real gun behind his back, reflects inwardly that this man is no ordinary member. He is in fact a professional assassin. The scene shifts to inside an apartment, where a suspicious light leaks out from behind the wardrobe. Voices analyze the situation. Contact with the network has successfully been established, an organization that uses minors to create social scandals and profit from them. On an investigation board, details are connected. The organization disguises itself as a simple illegal group formed by students, but in reality operates as a vast underworld criminal network, very similar in structure to the front used by Batala through its casino, using minors as protection against the authorities in a country as safe as Korea. Many unknowns still remain about the true nature of this organization, which could very well be equivalent to Batala itself locally. Reflecting alone, Kangmin acknowledges that despite all the investigation, deduction, and analysis gathered so far, he's still far from reaching the true main target. His previous source of information died before revealing further details, run over right when she could have still been useful. At a hospital, discussion about the hacking of the billboard in Hongdae continues to circulate, with the police investigation stalled and the hacker still at large. A supposed doctor approaches another hospitalized man, asking suspicious questions about the incident, calmly hinting that he knows more about the matter than he lets on. When asked about his intentions, the doctor, syringe in hand, reveals that the patient's role there has ended, moments before identifying himself as a member of the very organization that hired him, the network, revealing a disturbing pleasure as he describes previous deaths caused by lethal overdoses that cause hemorrhaging from the eyes, nose, and mouth. Back on the streets, Kangmin waits at the agreed meeting point, questioning the absence of the contact set for 2 in the afternoon. When he finally shows up, Kangmin is caught off guard by the casualness of his disguise, an ordinary student dressed in a hoodie instead of the elegant man from the day before, which he jokingly compares to pyramid schemes that use successful people as initial bait. The new contact assures him that despite the simple appearance, the transportation will be of the highest luxury, revealing a powerful car equipped with a twin-turbo V12 engine, leaving Kangmin momentarily amazed by the choice he made in approaching the organization. During the high-speed drive on the highway, the young man describes with morbidly rich detail the physical consequences of a fatal accident at that speed. Fractures, hemorrhaging, chain reaction collisions, pointedly asking if Kangmin had ever studied how people die, since he would know that better than anyone. Kangmin falls momentarily silent at the pointed comment, trying to hide his discomfort. The young man then finally reveals his true identity, referring to him directly as the Ace of Spades, a member of Batala, leaving Kangmin completely stunned. The young man formally introduces himself, stating that he is exactly the one Kangmin had been desperately trying to find this whole time. The scene opens with a flashback where one of the network members reports that he has already taken care of absolutely everything related to the incident that occurred the previous night inside the studio apartment. The unauthorized action taken by an underage member, the damage left by the confrontation, the fingerprints scattered around, the blood at the scene, and even the surveillance camera footage. None of it remained as evidence. Regarding the witness, he mentions since she had no visible injuries, they simply chose to administer pills capable of erasing her recent memory. Hearing this, the young man beside him asks, in a scene with bullets flying everywhere, how could she have come out completely unscathed? He adds that the absence of external marks doesn't guarantee everything is fine, so he intends to do a CT scan and afterward a FU on her. The other man, confused, asks what he's talking about, and the young man just laughs, asking if that sounded like a real doctor, since he's been studying a lot by watching medical dramas. The network member resumes his report and reveals what he discovered about Kangmin. On paper, he's just an ordinary student, but his entire academic record is falsified. Digging deeper, they found evidence that he is in fact Filipino and a professional assassin. The young man looks shocked, asking if he heard correctly, saying it sounds more like a joke. The informant then reveals the name of the organization Kangmin belongs to, Batala. The young man is stunned, asking if they're really talking about that Batala, and the other confirms it. Crossing his arms with a look full of dark intent, he declares that he needs to meet a Batala member in person and get an autograph. Back in the present, inside a moving car, the same young man introduces himself to Kangmin as Lee San. Kangmin freezes upon hearing the name. He remembers perfectly the mission he received: eliminate Lee San. He prepares to act, but Lee San asks if he really intends to kill him right there at that exact moment, asking him to think logically before doing anything rash, pointing outside the vehicle. The camera shows the tire of one of the cars alongside them, and from above, it's revealed that several other vehicles have completely surrounded the car Kangmin is in. Lee San warns that it would be best for him not to do anything foolish, then displays a drawing, the Ace of Spades symbol. Kang Min's mouth drops open, stunned, and after a moment of silence, he just murmurs that this is terrible. Elsewhere, a young woman comments that they've probably already noticed, stating that she carried out the identity forgery exactly as sloppily as she was asked to do, but questions whether her boss is really sure about this decision, since it was she herself who taught her to never leave traces when creating a fake identity. The conversation is with her superior. The girl asks why she was ordered to put together an identity so easy to uncover. Was it a way of exposing someone to elimination? The boss denies it, explaining that he needs to reveal himself on purpose in order to reach the core of the rival organization in a short time. This is the Ace of Spades strategy. Understanding this, the girl agrees it makes sense, but asks what will happen afterwards. She states that if the network finds out the target is Lee San, they certainly won't sit still. The boss stays silent for a moment, then asks if the girl knows how to deceive someone perfectly.
The girl asks if she's referring to a seduction trap, but the boss simply sums it up in a few words. You need to mix lies and truths, adding a spoonful of lies until everything seems 100% true. Back to the protagonist, Lee San states he already knows everything. The reason Kang Min came to Korea using a fake identity. Moving closer, he asks if he's being hunted by Batala, commenting that freedom is something valuable, but betraying the organization and fleeing is an enormous risk. Kang Min just stares at him, saying that just thinking about it already makes him angry. Lee San presses him to tell the story, while Kang Min thinks to himself that the stage is already set. Now he just needs to mix a spoonful of lies with a spoonful of truth, rebuilding the real facts of his life within a new scenario. He then recounts that after completing a mission, his freedom was promised. He imagined he could finally return to Korea and live freely, but an organization member showed up to kill him, proving that Batala never had any intention of letting him go. Lee San asks if that's why he's running, questioning whether it wouldn't be safer to stay hidden somewhere no one could find him. Why be in such a hurry to expose himself? Kang Min answers with a saying, if you want to hide a dog, the best place is among other dogs. He explains that Batala will try to eliminate him again, so he needs protection. He hands over a package, saying that if Lee San guarantees his survival, he'll start working for him. Lee San asks if that isn't asking too much of an organization made up of students, and Kang Min retorts that the network he knows is in fact a group specialized in hiring assassins. In another scene, the boss explains that the underage members serve only as a distraction, a smokescreen. The girl asks if Kang Min's death will also be covered up by these young students, but the boss assures her that won't happen. Surprised, the girl asks where such certainty comes from, and the boss just smiles, asking if she really needs a reason. Back in the car, Lee San comments that having the Ace of Spades working for them would be quite an offer, but he'd rather decline. He already has enough sweets in his life, and too much sugar causes diabetes. Plus, he's terrified of the dentist. He suspects there are lies mixed in the story he was told, or maybe Kang Min approached him for other reasons, like a poisoned chalice. Kang Min smiles, catching Lee San off guard. He asks him to be honest and direct, saying he knows exactly what he's feeling, fear of an armed confrontation with Batala. He states that bringing half a dozen armed cars just to meet a kid like him already proves how terrified Batala makes him. Lee San then suddenly grips his shoulder and with a strange expression declares that the network would come out the winner of that confrontation. The scene cuts to a stopped roller coaster with rides rusted from years of abandonment. Getting out of the car, Kang Min comments that it's been 10 years since his last visit to an amusement park, and that the place isn't quite as he remembered. He even asks if it's Halloween season. Lee San replies that the place has been closed for a long time. No activity and no security cameras. The perfect spot to dispose of a body. He then reveals that, originally, he planned to dispose of Kang Min's body along with another one in the trunk, but he changed his mind because something in the report about him caught his attention. The witness showed no physical trauma, meaning Kang Min thought to protect her. It would have been much more efficient to simply eliminate her. Lee San asked whether that was just to avoid a commotion or whether he wasn't trying to draw attention on purpose. Staring intently at Kang Min, he asks if he fell for the witness, and suddenly reveals that this very woman is the one in the trunk. She appears, terrified, while Kang Min freezes, asking what that means. Lee San simply answers that he wanted to confirm whether he really belongs to Batala, and is in fact the Ace of Spades. He points a spoon at Kang Min, ordering him to take a big spoonful of pudding. If he can do that, he can join the network.
since an elite Batala member would never be shaken by something as trivial as feelings, Lee San adds. He tells him to go ahead, and Kangmin, holding the spoon, repeats the words, "a spoonful of pudding," flashing the smile of someone about to do something not good at all with that utensil. Elsewhere, two young men stare at a huge ice cream sundae, wondering between themselves whether they'll really be able to finish it. The third member of the group keeps trying to call a colleague, wondering why she isn't answering, even starting to consider whether she might have been kidnapped. Back at the main scene, Kangmin reflects internally that the real target is Lee San, now right in front of him. All he needs to do is eliminate him to complete the mission. But one doubt consumes him. Is that really Lee San? What if it's a body double? He calculates a 50% chance of being wrong, and if he eliminates the imposter, the real Lee San would find out the true objective and flee immediately. Looking at the young woman beside him, he concludes he can't take the risk now, and all that's left is to keep playing along with the game Lee San has set, who comments that he's full of energy at that moment. He barely finishes the sentence when Kangmin plunges the spoon in without any hesitation, catching Lee San off guard. He reveals that this isn't the girl he met. He realized from the start that it was a setup, since no matter how perfect the appearance, it would be impossible to exactly replicate real muscle density. Suddenly, Lee San's voice echoes through a microphone asking if Kangmin can hear him, and stating that he put a lot of effort into impressing him, confirming that the person inside the car was in fact a stand-in, disguised as a friend. The figure stands up in front of Kangmin, and Lee San reveals that he's a network member, but a traitor. The man removes his mask, asking why Lee San forced him to take part in that. Was it some kind of surprise party? His name is Lee Daniel. Kangmin asks if there's a reason behind this, and Lee San praises his sharpness, explaining that the two of them have something in common. They're both wanted by the same organization. To survive, they need to fight, wagering their own lives. The winner joins the network. Chains shoot towards Kangmin, cutting the car in half and destroying everything in their path. With a sadistic smile, Lee Daniel declares that it's wonderful, a work of art, the perfect decoration for his work. Kangmin, who dodged the attack, asks what he's talking about, and Lee Daniel attacks again, claiming to be an artist who eliminates people and turns them into works of art, displaying his creations to the world. He recalls with pride his last special piece, in which he used the target's own family as part of the decoration. Bewildered, Kangmin asks if this means Lee Daniel also kills innocent people and plays with their bodies, concluding that he's not just a psychopath, but an artistic psychopath. Lee Daniel is nearly hit but escapes by a hair, saying he liked the compliment and adding that it's only natural Kangmin doesn't understand. A true artist needs a flexible mind, like the graceful movements of a dancer. Moving closer, he promises to explain in detail what kind of work he plans to make out of him, narrating what he intends to do with each part of his body as he attacks. After hearing all of this, Kangmin asks if he intends to turn him into a carousel horse. Lee Daniel finds the comparison between his work and a carousel horse amusing, and while cornering him, states that his art is far beyond something so simple. The rusted ride completely shatters, raising a cloud of dust that obscures the entire view of the area. Lee Daniel declares it unforgivable to compare his art to those rusty metal rides. He's on an entirely different level. Suddenly, a metal horse is hurled at him, destroying it completely. Amidst the wreckage, Kangmin appears holding a metal bar. Lee Daniel's eyes widen as he sees several more bars coming his way, but he manages to dodge all of them, stating that crude and direct attacks like that are cliché and won't have any effect. Suddenly, he stops. Smiling, Kangmin asks what he thought of the work he just created, the magic circle, ninth circle, meteor. Proudly, he starts to explain more about his creation, but Lee Daniel interrupts, saying he doesn't want to hear such childishness. It's corrupting his artistic sense. Looking up, Kangmin warns that the work isn't complete yet. The meteor is still missing. When Lee Daniel raises his eyes, an explosion appears in the distance. When the dust finally settles, Lee Daniel declares it bizarre to call that art, stating he'll be kind enough to teach Kangmin the true meaning of artistic beauty. However, something on the ground catches his attention, a toy puppy. Kangmin emerges from inside a little house, declaring it will be an eye for an eye, art for art. He raises his wand, revealing that he's wearing a crown and wielding a toy scepter, announcing that everything will start over. But
this time with a dazzling glow. The wand, previously off, is finally activated by Kangmin, who declares he will use magic to annihilate evil. He states that his scepter has all the necessary upgrades. Lee Daniel mocks him, calling it childish, questioning whether he really intends to use that toy as a weapon. Kangmin retorts that a good craftsman never blames his tools, but Lee Daniel counters that he doesn't understand. The greater the mastery, the greater the sensitivity towards one's own instruments. Red threads appear in the air, all emanating directly from his body. Kangmin asks if it was really necessary to pull threads out of his own clothes, and Lee Daniel answers by surrounding him completely, describing the threads as delicate yet sharp as blades. Kangmin dodges quickly and the threads cut through everything around them, including the remaining iron toys in the area, proving that this weapon is far from insignificant. In the next instant, Lee Daniel already has the threads practically glued to Kangmin. However, the magic wand activates, firing soap bubbles that hit the enemy's eyes head-on, causing immediate discomfort.
Kangmin is pleasantly surprised to discover this function of the weapon, while Lee Daniel, irritated, tries to wipe the soap from his eyes. He realizes Kangmin has vanished, not noticing that he's hidden right beside him. Kangmin mentally assesses that, despite his opponent's impressive mastery of weapons, his close quarters combat and tracking abilities still leave something to be desired. He decides he's seen enough of his opponent's level and that it's time to finish things. But suddenly, his eyes widen as he realizes Lee Daniel had positioned dolls as decoys in his place. Before he realizes it, Lee Daniel's already behind him. Kangmin tries to turn around in time, but his toy has already been cut in half. Lee Daniel reveals that this was just practice, proudly showing off the scar on his cheek, and declares that soon Kangmin's body will belong to him. At that moment, he stops upon hearing a radio static sound coming from the magic wand, and suddenly blood sprays through the air. Kangmin asks what it feels like to stare death in the face, taunting Lee Daniel, who keeps bleeding non-stop. Kangmin comments that he still insists on talking nonsense while his opponent tries to flee, being merely watched by the protagonist. The scene moves inside one of the little houses in the abandoned park, where Kangmin enters and examines the traces left by Lee Daniel, concluding that he ran in true desperation. After all, dying must be terrifying. Lee Daniel has already stopped his own bleeding and is on his knees, surrounded by his own threads, muttering nonsensical things right in front of Kangmin. Asked if he's traded his career as an artist for one as a madman, he denies it, stating that this is pure inspiration. Facing death head-on illuminated him, rather than simply dragging him toward the end. The outside view of the little house reveals a rope tied to the park's chairs, connecting directly to the spot, and Lee Daniel announces that he'll pull that rope toward himself. The cord is tied around his own neck. Kangmin calls him crazy, but suddenly finds himself surrounded by threads. Lee Daniel declares that no matter what he says, from that moment on, there's no escape. He pulls the threads hard, raises his gaze, and proclaims that this will be his greatest work of art. Crying, he asks if Kangmin can hear the sound of a huge piece of metal plummeting right above them. Kangmin realizes he's completely immobilized, while Lee Daniel keeps rambling, until he declares that everything is futile but beautiful. The massive metal block crashes directly onto the little house where they both are. Lee Daniel, still crying, gets up and says they should embrace death, extending his arm to Kangmin. The roof gradually begins to give way, cracking with every moment. Cut to a reddish sky, surrounded by destroyed toys scattered across the ground. Lee San, watching everything from above, remarks in astonishment that an entire arcade used to stand there, now reduced to rubble. He looks down and, turning around, states that art is really something hard to understand, a comment directed at Kangmin, who replies that he'd rather smoke than sit around reflecting on that kind of thing, assuring him that he did exactly as agreed. Lee San agrees. Later, Lee Daniel appears tied up, crying over the work of art that didn't turn out right. Lee San declares that Kangmin passed the test. From that moment on, the network will guarantee his protection. In exchange, however, he'll have to eliminate anyone assigned to him, he adds with a smile, no matter who it is. Days later, Kangmin walks down the street, wondering why the network hasn't made contact since that confrontation. Arriving home, he types in the door password, but hesitates for a moment before confirming entry. Opening the door, he finds the apartment completely empty. However, he immediately senses that he's not alone in there.